had my own little space. Anyway, we were still engaging sexually, even though we were off, right? And so it was in this time where there was a lineup of us. We was passing each other on the stairway in and out.
No, y'all wasn't. No, y'all was not passing
you think this is a game.
You were not passing each other on the stairway. No, y'all was.
We were passing each other on the stairway. Like, this is my shift from this time to this time. So, you know, I was a willing participant in that. And this is, like, I can laugh about it now, but it's really sad, you know, to, like, what space you have to be in to accept that. And so I dealt with it already, so I could laugh about it now. And it's funny,
that's what healing looks like. Healing,
right?
You look back at your old self and laugh.
I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, no, seriously. It was, you know, I'm coming over at this time. I know such and such is going to be rolling through about, you know, an hour and a half later. Yeah. And sometimes we went a little bit longer. So literally passing each other on the stairs, like out the door. All right, have fun, you know, your shift. You know, and literally. And so there was a lot of people involved at that time. We weren't in a relationship. So all the people that like committed relationships. So I was just on the rotation at the time, and I ended up getting pregnant with our first child. And it was in that I was like, okay, Danae, you got to figure out what you're doing with your life. You are whole pregnant, and you can't get rid of this child, because I had already had 3 abortions before, and the Lord had already dealt with me. And I was like, Lord, if you save me from this, I'm not going to ever do this again. Got pregnant. I was like, I can't go back on my word, Lord. I don't want you to kill me. Yeah. You know, but so I started, okay.
Welcome back to my channel, Your Average Logical Thinker. I hope you guys are all doing well. Happy Memorial Weekend. To those of you that celebrate Memorial Weekend, I do, because I am a veteran, and there are those who have lost their lives, those that are still missing in action, that deserve a celebration and a memorial for. So shout out to all my veterans. Shout out to all my active duty members. Shout out to my reservists. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to my Black people. So I want to discuss Danae Jaxn, because I'm trying to figure out if my thinking is off, and if some of you guys agree with me or not, and why. So when Derek Jaxn was first exposed, I felt like Derek Jaxn was an F-boy. I felt like, you know, how dare he treat his beautiful Christian wife this way? You know, he's cheating on her. He's got women having abortions, you know, all of this crazy stuff. And then come to find out, the wife was along for the ride the entire time. So she's doing this interview, and I didn't watch the whole thing, because at that point, once I realized that she was a willing participant, I mean, what else? What else is there, you know? She stated that he's been cheating from the very beginning. They had been having threesomes from the very beginning. And then she chose to continue having threesomes. She chose to marry this man. She chose to have more than one child by this man. And then after she was publicly humiliated and all of this stuff came out, she still chose to stay in the marriage to make it work. So why the victim campaign? How are we still justifying her behavior after we find out that she was a willing participant? How do we do that? You know, now it's obvious that this young woman has low self-esteem, low self-worth issues. But when you become a grown woman and you start making grown woman decisions like marriage and having children, it is your responsibility to pick yourself up and seek help. And I hope that's what she is doing at this point. But it all makes sense as to why Derek Jaxn was so confident and so successful in his work. He could sit up on there and talk about what narcissistic men do, what cheaters do, what users do, because he was that. So he was speaking from an expert position, but he did it so comfortably and was successful because he had the approval of his wife. These things have been going on all this time. He felt no qualms about getting on camera because he was doing it. And she knew about it. It would be different if she didn't know, but she was a willing participant. So I just don't understand how we are still calling her a victim when she stayed in that. I could be wrong. Now, is it fair? Is it right that he took advantage of somebody with low self-esteem and self-worth? Absolutely not. And he will be punished for that if he doesn't repent. I believe that. I believe that if he doesn't feel sorry and he's still moving in the same way, he's going to pay for that. You know, his time will come. But in the meantime, in between time, she need to get off the camera. Because in my opinion, she looks more of a fool than he does. You know, and that's why it's so important for us to uplift each other and be there for each other. And when we see a young woman going down the wrong path and settling for BS, that we pull her aside and talk to him, you know. I'm a grown-ass woman. I've been around for many moons, and I do my best to try to talk to those that are younger than me, give them PSAs on, you know, what's right and what's wrong, and based on my experience and what I've encountered, what works for me, what hasn't worked for me, where I see you going wrong. That's my job as the auntie of the community, is to say this is what happened and this is not going to work. But there was something that I saw online as well with Dr. Umar Johnson. He made a statement stating that a lack of funds and financial capabilities shouldn't deter a person from having a child.
Growing up only to hate the world and taking out their frustration on the world because mommy and daddy never validated me.
This sounds like an argument for men that don't have money, don't have jobs, shouldn't be reproducing.
Never. I would never make that argument.
The argument sounds like if you don't have money, which arguably a lot of men don't have, you can't have kids. If you do have a job, you're probably not going to have the time to spend with your kids.
That's not my argument. I don't think economics should dictate whether or not you produce children. We have a God-given right to have children. Yeah. I would even argue we have a God-given obligation to make children. The question wasn't whether or not they should have children. The question is whether or not they should have large numbers of them.
Okay.
You see the difference there?
Isn't that a limitation?
No, not necessarily, because remember, society is going to pay a cost if you're not able to spend time with those children. I'm a psychologist. Yeah. My job is to work with children. I deal with the emotionally frustrated and the socially dysfunctional child on a daily basis. It's my life. And do you know what they all have in common? From the killer to the drug dealer to the marijuana addict to the guy who's out sticking up old women for their pocketbooks. You know what they all have in common? Daddy never spent enough time with me. Mama never spent enough time with me. So it is very selfish for me as a black man to know I'm not going to raise these kids properly, produce them anyway, when I know the karmic reaction to my poor parenting is these children are going to take out the lack of love I gave them onto the community in the form of hatred. A lot of what's going on in South Africa, you're murdering.
Now, Dr. Umar, listen, I rocks with you. Even though, you know, you've been taking money from the community for years now, over a decade, and you still ain't built no damn school, I still rock with you because a lot of the stuff you say makes sense and needs to be said and needs to be heard. However, to get up here and state that not having resources and money is not a reason to have a kid? That is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. He stated that what a child needs more than anything is time, not money. So let me ask you this. If you don't have money, you are going to lose time, because that time is going to be spent working 2 and 3 jobs so that you can support yourself and your children. So your time is already taken up. So if you're working 2 and 3 jobs, second and third shift, the time is gone because you got to make up for the lack of funds. Am I wrong, or am I thinking backwards? Do you guys agree with that sentiment? No, I do believe children need time. Absolutely. They need your time. Especially during those formidable years, they need your full attention. But 80% of homes in America are single parent. So if single parents have to work, they're not necessarily going to always have the adequate amount of time it takes to fully raise a functional child in the society. I'm sorry. And so when a young woman and a young man get together, they should think about birth control. Well, first they should think about abstinence. How about we just stop having sex? But that's not a reality. So how about we think about protection, contraception? Because we know already we don't have the time and we don't have the finances and the resources to care for said child. I know somebody 25 having a baby. In the midst of that, they lost their apartment, was in a shelter. According to Dr. Umar, that's perfectly fine with him. According to his statement, it's fine. She don't have the money to support herself. She don't have the resources to raise this baby, but it's okay, because what they need is time, not your money. But they do need the money. You know why? Because the lack of housing, the lack of money causes stress and anxiety on a pregnant woman. And that stress and anxiety is transferred and passed down to that baby. That baby comes out with ADHD. That baby comes out with all type of emotional and mental illnesses that you couldn't even fathom due to all of the hormones and all of the things going on in a woman's body while she is trying to grow this baby inside of her. And then when the kid comes out into the world and you're trying to nurture this kid and you're worrying about having food and enough money for Pampers, that baby feels that anxiety. Your breast milk decreases because you're so stressed. So the baby's not getting that nourishment. So you tell me, Dr. Umar, how finances and resources aren't that important when bringing a child into this world. I was also thinking about, the debt ceiling limit. June 1st, we're supposed to know what the government is going to do. And I'm really worried about it. I was thinking about society and why foreigners are scrambling to get here. And it's really not that America is this great, beautiful place, land of the free, home of the brave. What it is that Americans are willing to pay for anything. This is a capitalistic society we live in the US, and we are so easily duped into spending money on everything that a person can come over here, start a business, and they will have customers. You know, just think about the airline industry for an example. When I lived overseas, it cost me less than $100 to travel from Germany to Paris. I think it was like a 3 or 4 hour flight, and then I traveled somewhere and that was a 6-hour flight, still less than $100, right? If I want to go to Texas, I'm going to Texas in July, I had to pay $500 for a round trip ticket that I bought 60 days in advance. That's ridiculous, right? So the COVID happened, everything shut down, a lot of people couldn't travel. They knew that when those restrictions were lifted, that they could raise the prices on everything and people would still pay because they were so desperate to be outside. They can totally manipulate us and raise the price of everything. And instead of us banding together and saying, you know what, this month we're gonna boycott American Airlines until the prices of their domestic travel goes down. But people won't do that. Nobody's willing to suffer and sacrifice going to see whoever, getting out that vacation and all that in order for the greater good. Instead, we pay for it. You know, the lady that braids my hair, last time I got my hair braided, it cost $225. And I said, this isn't how much I paid last time. She goes, oh, I always charge this much. No, you didn't. Your prices went up by $25, ma'am. You know, but guess what? We still pay for it. Instead of coming together and saying, you know what? This is ridiculous. I understand small businesses have to make their money and the cost of everything is rising so that they have to raise their prices. I understand. But when things get so ridiculous and so outlandish with prices, I think we ought to band together and say no more. But we are not able to do that. We are so concerned, and this is just America in general, we are so concerned about how we appear to other people when it comes to looks and fashions and material items that we're not willing to sacrifice for a couple months for the greater good. I'm trying to sacrifice so that I could have more for me and my son in the future. It sucks. And it hurts. But I know in the long run, it's worth it, you know? I don't know. Life is life, and I guess all we could do is start with ourselves and then hope that other people catch on. But if we don't put it out there, how could we ever achieve it? You know? There's a lot of people online that say they're down for the cause and they're down for boycotting and working together, but when it comes down to it, we really aren't. We really aren't willing to put in the work. I'm willing to put in the work when I know that there's a clear direction as far as where we're going. And we have an end goal and an exit strategy. You know, but when you just come to me with ideas that sound okay and it doesn't necessarily make sense, it's not something that I can always rock with. But let me know what you guys think. I'm just rambling at this point. I hope you guys have a great and safe weekend. Have a plan. No drunk driving. All that good stuff. All right, peace.